Hey, manufacturing world, welcome to another episode of Shop Matters, sponsored by Okuma America. I'm very excited. Joining me today in the studio, I've got Mike Hampton, who's one of our great guys at Okuma America, and then I've got Larry Robbins, who is the president of SMW Autoblok. So thank you for joining us, Larry.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, Wade.
So Mike, tell us a little bit about your role, your title, and then we're going to kind of tie in how Larry fits into the picture here.
Yes, sir. So my role at Okuma America, I'm the business development manager. So my main focus when I started with Okuma back in 2018 was growing the revenue divisions of our exchange programs and then also service parts. Since then, as of April 1st, now I manage our partners and tech centers. You're very familiar with those responsibilities,
Certainly.
Wade, and have been a huge help with that and that transition. So that's when I have spent a lot more time with Larry and our partner companies, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. So Larry, again, thank you for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I grew up in this industry. I grew up in a family. My dad owned a machine tool distributorship for many, many years in the Northeast.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, my brother and sister swear my father hated me because he brought me into this business. On the other hand, my mother said he probably loved me because the other two are 50 and retired. And here I am 60 and happily still working.
Right.
But
yeah.
I grew up in this industry. I never wanted to do anything else. I've always said, you do what you do for a long time, and I wouldn't change what I do for the world. I love this. I mean, I meet people like you and Mike, and most of my friends come from this industry. So
right, yeah, and it's funny in this industry how it's such a family kind of industry in a way.
Everybody knows everybody, and you know what? Nobody leaves; they just go to other places sometimes.
Yeah, the logo on the shirt changes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, the face gets older, the logo on the shirt changes once in a while.
How long have you been with SMW?
In one form or another since 1990. I started out as a manufacturer's rep. I owned a company here in North Carolina, actually, for many years.
Okay.
And from that point on, I just kind of grew as a person and decided to sell my company in 2001. Once I sold my company, I kind of took a little hiatus from the industry, went to work for a competitor for a while, and then decided I knew where I belonged and got off a plane, was coming back from a board meeting and talked to an old friend, and he said, "Hey, I hear you're not happy." And I was like, "God, I can't stand this, going to Japan every 6 weeks for a board meeting."
Right.
And he said, "Listen, I just got promoted. Would you be interested in coming back?" And I said, "Well, here's the problem. I probably make more than you do right now." And he laughed. He goes, "Well, I can't pay you more than I make, but I can promise you you'll have a job until you don't want to work." And that's the rest is history. I mean, I've started out as a regional manager, became national sales manager, then VP of sales, and then president a few years ago when Gary Downs finally retired.
Right. And, that's something I think is interesting about this industry, that a lot of people, especially kids, I deal with a lot of high school kids and things like that. And you think about the jobs that are available in this industry, and you think of a machinist or a programmer or things along those lines, but there's so many opportunities out here to still be in manufacturing, but do a lot of different type of roles that it's interesting to hear the background that everybody brings to the table.
Right. And I mean, I remember thinking I was being punished. I remember my dad saying, "You're going to go to work in a shop for 2 years." Yeah. And I can remember getting up every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, like mumbling, cursing all the way to work, thinking, "What did I do wrong? I went to college. What the hell did I go to college for?"
Yeah.
And thank God he did that, because it made me understand why a machine does what it does. It really did give me the basis for being fairly successful at my career. So
it's like building a house, right? You got to have a strong foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you don't know which end of the hammer to use, you're in trouble. So
right. Yeah,
it probably instilled a great deal of work ethic into you as well. So
well, work ethic and fear. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. It's interesting because you realize in our industry we get to see so many things that people don't. People take for granted. You get in a car. Nobody's seen a transmission being made or an engine being made. We get to see all of those things, and we take for granted the things we're exposed to.
Yeah.
It's just that it's amazing. If you really pay attention to this industry, we touch everything from clothing, manufacturing machines that manufacture clothing,
right,
all the way to things that go into space. So it's a great, interesting, touch everything kind of industry. So,
well, as we talk about things being produced, tell us a little bit about your product line and what does SMW, where's your sweet spot in the market? And then we'll talk a little bit on what the future looks like, and things like that.
SMW Autoblok was founded actually as Autoblok SPA in 1941. We were a subcontractor to Fiat in Torino, Italy. They're still the largest they're still the largest employer in Torino.
Wow.
And have been through a bunch of acquisitions over the years. Well, we used to make specialty tooling for them.
Okay.
And at one point, one of their engineers came and said, "You make the most beautiful hydraulic cylinders in tooling. Why don't you market this?" And there was a light that went off in somebody's head, and they were like, "Wait, we could become a worldwide company." When our current owner took over from his father in 1968, Autoblok started in 1942. In 1968, we became a commercial company. We were less than $1 million in sales. Last year, we finished somewhere around 600 million euro, and we're still privately owned.
Okay.
We're worldwide. We're in 70 countries around the world. Our sweet spot is rotating work holding, chucks, mandrels. That's where we started.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, we've acquired other companies. We've expanded. Now we're not only chucks, we're stationary work holding. We're magnetic chucks.
Yeah.
We own expanding mandrel companies. And now we're getting into electronics and automation, and we'll talk about that as time goes on.
Yeah. When I first started kind of getting involved with you guys, I mean, that was how I learned about you, right? Was
Sure.
rotating work holding, the cylinders on the back of the machines and the chucks. So,
Sure.
I'd say 90% of what we worked on back in those days, it was all chuck 3-jaw chucks and cylinders on the back of it, and increasing the size of the cylinder to handle bigger work pieces, whatever the custom type projects we
Sure.
were working on. So for me, SMW was always synonymous with chucks and cylinders. And then it wasn't until I was doing your role now, but I was managing our tech centers, and John Sanowski, my tech center coordinator in Chicago, all the mills, he had SMW work holding on. And it kind of floored me. I walk in, I look at this, I'm like, does it have an SMW logo on it? I never think about you guys on mills, and that's a big part of your portfolio now.
It's becoming larger and larger every week, every month, every year. I mean, it's becoming a bigger part of our mix. When it started out, and I have to take credit for this, I said 17 years ago when we bought OML, which is what became our stationary work holding company.
Okay.
We're a chuck company. We don't sell stationary work holding. I kind of opened the door for everybody else to start selling.
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, our owners came to us and said, we don't care what you think, you're going to sell this. So we had to start from scratch. We've done very well at acquiring business that in the past, no one would even entertained with us. And now we're doing much larger design and builds. A lot of your distribution out west, especially, we're doing millions of dollars worth of projects. In fact, we're about to do a project with Hartwig out in Colorado right now that'll end up being $2.5 or $3 million in one order. And if it works, there's another 3 right behind it.
Wow.
So those are the things that have come to the forefront. It's not just a $2,800 chuck anymore. Now there's millions of dollars in custom work holding, and we do a lot of that here in the United States. So.
And the engineering and support behind it.
We have a full engineering department in the United States. We're 8 engineers. We're 3 project managers. We're 2 applications people full time. We have 2 service centers, one in Chicago and one in Conroe, Texas. So we're kind of prepared to service the network that is important to us. Out of the Midwest, of course, it's automotive, aerospace, job shops for the most part. Southwest, it's all oil and gas. So it's becoming a bigger mix now. You're seeing more and more aerospace move down there. Even some like research and development for automotive stuff, which is shocking in northern Louisiana and parts of Texas. I didn't know there was a General Motors assembly plant in Dallas until I went to Dallas 25 years ago. So I was like, I didn't know there was one outside of Chicago or outside of Michigan.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Again, what you learn as you travel, but our core business is still and going to always remain work holding. I am of the opinion, and Wade, as you know, with your position, automation is becoming a larger and larger part of what we do in our industry.
Sure.
And we're really starting to get hot and heavy entering into that kind of arena. And we're very pleasantly surprised so far with the reception to our products. So.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, and Mike's going to hear me talk about this a little bit later today. And we were doing an all employee meeting at the office here later this morning. And a big problem that every manufacturing company has, I don't care if you're a big tier 1 company or if you're John Doe's pretty good job shop, it's a people problem. There's so many. I got to do a sales blitz out in California this week, and we visited dozens of shops just over and over a couple of days, and every one of them was busy. I mean, they are full to the max, but they all have machines. They have capacity because they can't keep the spindles running because they don't have the people in places to be able to keep the machines fed. And so that's where a lot of the conversation wound up turning to automation. And we can solve a lot of those problems. You look at making a part on just a machine through the partners in technology, we can solve customers' problems because we have 40 some partner companies that all bring technology to be able to manufacture that part as great as it can be. And then now we're going into that with automation and finding who are the right partners that can help us drive that automation side of it. So I know you guys are going to be a big, important player in that.
Well, we really appreciate the opportunity, Wade. Like anything else, it's hard when you're a player in a certain arena in your industry and all of a sudden you start to venture into places you've never been. All of a sudden you start stepping on people's toes. Some of our biggest competitors, we'll have conversations at trade shows and they'll be like, you don't make that. We're like, we do now.
Right.
And they'll laugh and they're like, great, another product we're going to compete against. But it's good to have that reception of people. Oh God, you guys are doing that now too. It just compounds that what we're doing is right.
Right. Well,
I've said to everyone, we're never going to be the cheapest solution. We're always probably going to be one of the most expensive solutions, but we justify that with quality, service, and reliability.
Well, I think what you just said is really important. Somebody mentioned you don't make that, and you said we do now. Well, that goes hand in hand with your tagline, right? Always a step ahead, I believe it is.
Yep.
And, I think that is going to carry the success of Okuma and SMW as automation even gets more popular, because we know that everybody is interested in it. It's just going across that ledge and investing in it. So,
right. Well, it's getting people to understand it's not just a high production, high volume solution anymore. Our owners are still inquisitive every time when they come into our factory. Why don't you have a robot? We make one of something. Yeah, but you can make that first one and then run the next two jaws at night. So we're starting now to have the thought process of running first article inspection during the day, and all our other parts will run unattended with either a load and go style setup or something. Yeah. And of course, we'll talk to Okuma as we're venturing down that path. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah, no, we're excited. Last time I saw you at a trade show, I'm trying to think, outside of IMTS, I think it was EMO, it might have been.
Actually, yeah, probably. Yeah.
You took me over and showed me some new products that were coming out. I don't think they were really out to market yet, but it was stuff that you were kind of showing, getting some debuts out. And it was a lot of digital type technologies, which is not something, again, going back to just traditional work holding. I don't think of that being in a digital space, but tell me a little bit about some of the new product lines and what you're working on.
Sure. That's the most exciting part of this. I've been doing what I do now. This is my 42nd year, which just makes me old. But at the same point, you've seen so much.
You're going to get a permanent job one day.
Yes, at some point. Yeah, at some point I'll figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Right.
If somebody had told me 20 years ago we'd be getting into electronics and automation, we actually have started a separate company now called SMW Electronics. SMW Electronics will be responsible for our automation, our electronic non-contact transference of power and data to work holding components across a broad spectrum. So now it's not only lends itself to monitoring of our products, but let's say you have a fixture. Let's say you have a manual fixture, but you want to have you want to be able to identify. We're doing some sensoric products now that will actually, as you have a load station, will pass by. You'll have a receiving unit and a sending unit. Pause, send the information, power this implement, and send it down the road.
Wow.
So now I don't have to have power at the machine. I can power it before it gets to the machine. I can actuate my work holding, put it in the machine. It goes through a safety check and sends back a signal. Everything's where it should be. You can machine a part. Or more importantly, it sends back a signal going, you have the wrong part or the wrong fixture. Stop. Something's wrong here. And it won't allow you to progress.
So you're
from that point on.
fail-safe in that process.
And there's multiple safeties built in. I mean, we're such a limited time here. I can't get into all of it, but we are going to get into the non-contact transference of power and data from a work holding component directly back to the machine control. So now envision this. I'm making 5,000 forgings, okay? And I have this part. And from number 1 to number 5,000, there's a 12,000 variation because of forging die wear and things like that. Probe my part, send the information back to the machine. Okay, the part's off by 12 thousandths at 273 degrees. Sends a message to the chuck. And this is all instantaneous. Chuck offsets by 273 degrees. That's 12 thousandths in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky enough to have Larry come show us the granular details of this technology when we did a training session at our Partners in Technology facility, and it was just truly infatuating. My question, Larry, would be, is this already in the marketplace? Is it taking off, or what's the runway look like till we really see this type of technology in facilities around us?
We created this buzz, and I've always had a problem with companies creating buzz for things that aren't available right away.
Yeah.
And as you know, any new product development comes with its hurdles. And I'm totally transparent when it comes to this. when we first came to the market, we were, oh, here it is. We're going to
Mhm.
break, we're going to break records. We're going to set standards. We're going to change the way work holding is until you plug it in and it goes, oh, well, it's not talking to machine control. What happened?
Right.
So we've spent the last 2 years. This actually started in 2009.
Okay.
This process.
Wow. Yeah.
We started with what we called our MME motion chuck. And I can remember the first trade show where I walked up and one of my German colleagues had a cell phone. I was like, you texting your girlfriend? He's like, no, I'm controlling the chuck. I was like, get out of here. And he showed me.
Hmm.
And I was like a 6-year-old in
Yeah.
like a jump park. I was like, do that again. Do that again. Do
Yeah,
that. And
I
finally
gotta
it was
see
like,
that.
here's the phone. Have fun.
Yeah.
But it's amazing because this new technology is going to do things that we've never been able to do. Envision this. High low on the fly, no cylinder.
Wow.
No more hydraulic actuation. It's now electric. Totally sealed units. So now no coolant and swarf. I have
To do that right now, we either have to unchuck, rechuck, or you have to have a servo-driven actuator.
Right.
So,
Or we have a system that works as a true high-low where you never unclamp the part and it ties into the Okuma system. You have an interface that works with our system.
right.
The problem is, if you look at that solution, the control box is about $7,000. The install is about $7,000, and the patch from Okuma is about $7,000.
Yeah.
So now I have a $21,000 solution, and the customer hasn't made a part.
Yeah.
With this, part of the unit, it comes with it. And think of this now. I can control each axis individually. So if I have a 4-jet chuck, I have 4 independent NC axes I can control. Same thing with a vise, same thing with a tombstone, same thing with a hydraulic clamping setup. We're actually probably going to see the invention of electric swing clamps and electric clamping technology for fixturing that's hydraulic now. If you think about it, the only thing left that's hydraulic on a machine really is a chuck.
Right.
Servos have become electric. Our turrets have become electric.
Yep.
Tailstocks have become servo-driven electric.
Yep.
Hydraulics in a machine is there now just for components.
Mhm.
I think you're going to see that the ability to do that or the need for that go away at some point in the very near future. And again, wait, there's so much coming out. But Mike, to answer your question, yes, it's available right now. The thing is, we're introducing it in like sections. We're coming out with a full line of electric work holding, electric grippers. And the biggest difference in our technology to anyone else's in the industry is, if you look at electric gripper technology and the way it's out there now, in order to achieve maximum grip force, you have to hit it at the force that you want. Mechanical force creates clamp force. With ours, we have controllable clamp force, we have controllable travel, and we have linear positioning from our smallest unit, which is 50 millimeter by 35 millimeter by 100 millimeters.
Wow.
That can do from a small pharmaceutical bottle. And now envision this. I couple this with my couplers with non-contact transference of power and data. I can now have 360-degree rotation of a gripper finger without any wires or any clips breaking.
Yeah.
The biggest mode of failure for a pneumatic or any other type of gripper is acceleration, deceleration. It destroys clips and wires. And not to say we're not going to get into that industry also, because we have to. As a part, we have to offer the whole package. That's all going to be available for EMO in September. So we'll start shipping in September. I would say realistically, and to be totally transparent, January 1st, we'll be ready to ship this whole product.
Okay.
We're going to introduce this not only in EMO, but at West Tech in the United States.
Oh, nice.
Okay. We've had some conversation with Okuma about actually showing this at a technology showcase.
Yeah.
We're working on an interface with Okuma Corporate right now. And because you're computer-based, plug and play is much easier than having to worry about either a Mitsubishi chip or a Siemens chip or whoever's chip you use, from Fanuc or someone else. You guys saw the writing on the wall years ago, and open architecture is kind of the way it's become very easy for us to work with.
Yeah. And I think that is a huge advantage that I know the OSP control, it's very polarizing. You have camps that love it and don't want anything else. You have camps that say, I don't want it because it's OSP. I want Siemens, Fanuc, Mitsubishi, whatever. But the one thing that I think can tie a lot of that together is that open API and the fact that it really opens up the possibilities of what you can do with that control. The old line we've used for years, I started saying it back when that first kind of came out, is you're limited by your imagination. If you can do it on a desktop or a laptop PC, chances are we're going to be able to do that flawlessly directly onto that control. And that just opens up things of like what you're working on, how we can seamlessly integrate that to the control and make it so much easier for the people in the field that's integrating it. I'm seeing a lot in this kind of the DIY space with people tying in UR robots and collaborative robots and things where instead of bringing integrators in, it's a real proud shop owner or shop manager,
Yep.
somebody who had this idea of how he's going to do it. Well, all these peripheral devices, they all got to communicate. And dealing with one right now, a project I'm working on where they want RFID tied in with a system that the system itself can't do the RFID, but we can on the control. But now it's how do we make all three of these pieces communicate? And that open API is going to open up that library for us.
I think that's a huge piece of it. That supports Akuma's tagline, which is open possibilities, right?
Mhm.
So you're talking about
You were on
this.
the taglines today.
I like this. Yeah.
I'm on it. So you were talking about this product and this new technology being commercially ready in January. I think our Partners in Technology facility is a great place to showcase it as well when it's ready. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would, I've had plans on talking to both you and Wade anyhow about, introducing this at either a technology event or some kind of a partners exclusive event, or even maybe inviting people into the auditorium and doing a very exclusive introduction to your customer base. So,
Absolutely.
we could talk about what we want to talk about, but you guys hit another one, cobots and UR style robots, personal robots. We actually are in the process of doing investigations now, having 4 or 5 cobots that a salesman can have available to take out to a customer, lift out of his trunk, put on a table, and go, here's what it does. Show the gripper rotating 360 degrees. Show a sensor. And to your point with RFID, call me. These sensors allow you to identify not only a component, but can dump information. So if you want to couple that RFID with, okay, we want to download a program for machining this part now,
Right.
we can prompt something to download a program at the same time and
that's
offer
great.
that back to you in a reported format that you dictate.
Okay.
that's a great mobile
That
sales
is.
tool.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
if you
is,
can take a cobot and pull it out of your trunk and take it into somebody's manufacturing facility and demonstrate it, I think that's going to be eye-opening, and that's definitely a good sales tool.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of cool. And we're in the process of, as I told you, we came, the United States, actually our facility started in 1981. I happen to be in our original building, and that's been remodeled a few times. Well, we're going through a total gut and rebuild right now. Started with a warehouse, then we're going to do offices, then we're going to do fascia. And as part of that, we're going to have a demo center, something I've wanted for years, that's going to demonstrate every product we have and be able to bring customers and distributors and our OEM partners in and train people and be able to touch things.
Beautiful.
It would be like going to buy a car, and I'm old school. If I can't drive it, I'm not buying it. Carvana, you can give me any coin you want. I'm not buying a Ferrari out of a Carvana machine. I'm not buying a Ferrari, period. But it's, it's like anything else. I want to kick the tires before I drive it. I want people to have the ability, and I've even come up, thought of, do we buy 2 or 3 mobile vans that travel around the country showing this technology? And I think, crawl before you walk. If I go to our owners and want to spend $1 million right now, I'll probably be talking to you guys about getting a job too.
Yeah.
But at the same point, I think that you need to, if you're going to introduce industry-changing technology, and the way I talk about this is, to me, seeing what I see now, it's starting in this industry when it was manual machines and all the way up to CNC.
Right.
It's the difference between a Bridgeport and an MU 5000.
Yep.
5-axis machine with turning capabilities.
Yeah. I had a great conversation this week. One of the Gosker executives, he and I were having a philosophical debate on kind of where the industry is going, what the future looks like and things. And he made a statement, and I'm gonna use it in my speech today, was when the first CNC control got put into production, it was in 1959. And now there was a 30-year span before it really got adopted and took off. But everybody knew in 1959, your days as a manual machinist cranking handles on a shop floor,
they were going away.
Doomed. It's gone. As soon as they saw it, it's gone. Automation to me is the exact same way. Digital technologies, what you're doing in work holding, what we did 20 years ago is gone. This type of technology, shops will either incorporate it, embrace it, and drive their future, or they're going to wind up becoming irrelevant and going the way that your comment about a Bridgeport versus a CNC. The guys that went tracer mills, they're not doing that anymore, right?
No.
That whole technology shift has created a mass improvement in manufacturing and quality, and then the productivity of your equipment. Everything that we see that's been tied into automation and quick change work holding and things like that, your spindle utilization drives up tremendously, and that's where your return on your investment comes in. So that capital expenditure might be more up front, but you're making money on that from that point on.
Right.
So it's really, that conversation is more about how do you realize the best return on your investment on the work holding, on the grippers, on all these components that goes into making your part at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're spot on. It still blows my mind that the first NC control and OSP control have been in the marketplace for over 50 or 60 years now.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
that's a long time.
What year was the OSP introduced?
I believe it was between 63 and 73 is when the NC control and the OSP control were brought into the marketplace. So we're at our 60th anniversary of the OSP control.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
What's really sad though is how long it took for it to become mainstream OSP.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can remember the drum pounding of introducing this. People, oh, are you crazy? You're not going to have a FANUC control. Well, wow. Those naysayers now are going, wow, we wish we thought of that. I mean, and think of how many competitors have followed suit by coming up with similar formats, introducing it as new technology. But let's face it, just like Partners in Technology, just like OSP controls, you guys have kind of been a trendsetter in an industry change. You've done things that are industry changing. And I think that's really important to note, that when you choose your partner, I always look at who has the ability from this point forward to progress to the next level with us.
Right.
And that's the hardest part, because most people can't even answer that question. And I'm kind of glad we got down this path, because it's amazing to see the differences in our industry. I mean, the days of the old machinist that just shows up with his toolbox and, can come to work on a Tuesday at 3:00 in the afternoon and has a job by Wednesday morning at 8:00. Button pushers are becoming button pushers. They're like the guy that used to clean the shop bins, the coolant tanks in shops. The guy that had the least amount of capability was the guy that was doing that, because he wasn't a production loss.
Right.
Now, I have guys that just do setup and programming. I have other guys that just stand in front of a machine and run it all day long, because you can't find anything but an operator anymore. It's sad to say, but it's true.
Yep.
So
I think that's another good point that I'm kind of curious about. You do manufacturing here in the U.S., correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think that's great for all of our U.S. companies that's looking at that.
We found
manufacturing globally.
We found that over the years that buying from our parent company is great for base product, but anything that touches a part, to have it made overseas, ship it here and go, oh, we have to change the locator height, ship it back to Europe. That didn't make any sense.
Sure.
When we bought our first machine, I remember the IMTS that we went and took our owner and said, hey, what do you think of this machine? He goes, oh, it's beautiful. He goes, good, we bought it. He was like, what do you mean you bought a machine? And that was how we introduced that we were starting a shop. And now we're 9 machines.
Wow.
And we're 8 guys in our shop. We have a full quality department. We have a full service department. We have a full applications department. We're literally becoming more and more like a machine tool company every year, and less like a work holding company or an accessories company every day, because our biggest customers are OEMs.
Sure.
So,
Yes. Why don't you share with everybody, where is this manufacturing facility?
Wheeling, Illinois. We're northwest suburbs of Chicago. Our owners came back in the 80s or late 70s and looked around. Oh, this is the center of the country. We should be right here.
Yeah.
And I corrected them, said probably Nebraska, but you wouldn't have got anybody to move to Nebraska, so it doesn't matter. But we laugh about it, because realistically, that's kind of an old way of thinking now too. I mean, locating your company, think of Okuma starting on Long Island City. I mean, I can remember calling on Okuma in Long Island City back in the 80s, because it just, again, makes me old.
Yeah.
I think what you're going to see is location is going to become less and less of an issue. And I think what you offer is going to become more and more of what people are looking for.
Yeah.
The days of glad handing, I mean, it's still part of what we do. Let's face it, people buy from people.
Right.
But if I'm selling something that you don't need, no matter how good a friend we are, you're going to buy it from the guy that gives you the best solution.
Absolutely.
And that's why we always want to be on the cutting edge. The best, what do they say? The best form of flattery is copying what you do. I mean, we love to see when people come out with products that are just like ours, because this is just like the SMW Autoblok. And we're like, well, it might be just like ours in looks, but how about performance? Yeah. And that's where we kind of win every time. And that's why I never apologize for price, because to provide quality, good price and quality are never synonymous. So,
Well, I think our organizations are a lot alike in what you just said. I mean, we have premium products. They're a premium price, but they last forever. They're robust. They're reliable. And at the end of the day, they create customer satisfaction. So that's why our partnership's so strong, right?
It's worked out very well. And you know what? We've all been through horrible situations together. Mike and I have sat through some bad meetings. Wade and I have said, but you know what? It always works out, because we all know in the end, the most important part is our customer.
That's right.
And in the end, that customer is what keeps us both coming to work every day. And as long as we stick to what we say and say what we do and do what we say, we're going to be fine, guys. I think that Some of us, we're becoming dinosaurs in a way because the next generation doesn't understand how we can be on the road 40 weeks a year. They don't understand why we can't do it by a Teams meeting. And again, I keep bringing up the Carvana thing. I'm not going to a vending machine, slipping in a coin that somebody sold me for $65,000 and my car comes down.
Mm-hmm.
What if I don't like that car? What if I don't like the color of the interior? Can I return it? Well, sure you can, but it costs you 15%. Wait a second, I never even drove this car. Oh, I'm sorry. You took it out of the vending machine. Now somebody has to put it back. You guys know what it's like.
Yeah.
Customer buys something that's wrong. First of all, it's your fault. Why didn't you tell me? You're the expert.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sir, we tried to bring to your attention that this is, your versatility would be much better. Your money would be better spent doing this. Yeah, but I can't justify another $400,000. Well, it's like buying a Chevy and expecting to pick up a Ferrari. There's no comparison, but at the same time, there's a huge market for Chevys. There's also a huge market for Ferraris. It just depends on where you fall in that mix.
Sure.
So,
yep. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's the future for your company, or what's the focus, not future, but what's the focus for your company for 23, 24, as we move into?
Our focus is a fewfold, and sorry, I'm going to refer to some notes because again, old age sets in.
Yeah.
The most important part of what we do, and Mike, you'll appreciate this, continuous improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything else, as you grow, growing pains. We've experienced getting people with, people that have a background or experience or knowledge in what we do. We've found that we have to cultivate that internally and organically create our own talent.
Yeah.
The beautiful part about hiring younger people is they're kind of a dry sponge, and you can fill it up with information, and they don't come with bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
You hire somebody my age, I come with all the bad habits.
Mm.
But at the same point, you have to keep in mind that the most important thing we still service is a customer.
Yep.
Right.
And in common, if customer service is part of your basis of what you go to market as,
Mm-hmm.
I think your success is kind of, I won't ever say guaranteed, but your success is a little more assured.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the other thing that we're looking forward to coming forward is, what's the future of manufacturing in the United States? For years we've heard, we're in trouble, PBH moving offshore. And then we went to the last AMT meeting, and lo and behold, deglobalization.
Mm-hmm.
I literally sat next to a guy who Googled, what is deglobalization? And I was like, I can tell you that in 3 simple words: coming back here. And he just looked at me, and he looked, he goes, how did you know that? And I was like, this is not rocket science.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen is, people used to be upset with Germany because they called it protectionism.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Germans set the tone for keep your economy busy, and then you farm your work out to the rest of the European Union or the rest of the world, however you're going to do it. I think what it's going to do is it's going to strengthen the North American economy. I think Mexico and Canada are going to be huge benefactors of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They already are.
Yeah.
I think the European community will still be an integral part of what we do, but I think we need to continue to take control of what we do and assure that the future of manufacturing is solid. Anybody who believes that manufacturing is going away is either reading the wrong publications, listening to the wrong people. I mean, if you listen to Alan Bayou, I always pronounce his name horribly, but we've got the advantage at AMT of seeing someone who's over a 39-year period of time has been accurate 96.2% of the time. The Fed is accurate less than 90 or 50% of the time. I know who to listen to.
Absolutely.
And people need to realize that you have to invest in research to get the information that you need to present to people that's factual.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at, everybody's all upset now if you watch the news about, the economy's going to downturn. If we have a 2.3% reduction, that's called flat. We could actually see growth next year.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's, doom and gloom. I learned a long time ago, keep a smile on your face.
Mm.
Keep it simple. Tell the truth. It works every time.
Yeah.
And last but not least is basically for the company to continue to grow and expand,
Mm-hmm.
but in a controlled way. For so many companies, and it's happened to us too. Mike, you could probably speak to this better than I can. Mike actually, unfortunately, was the benefactor of a project that kind of went sideways with SMW Autoblok.
Mm.
And I'm always good about talking about being transparent about the good, the bad, the ugly. What started out as a horrible situation has now turned into a good situation for both companies because the customer's happy.
Mm.
They're going to sign off on the machine. And at the same point, they're looking at more machines with more product. And lo and behold, we thought we were going to, the customer's going to be like, we will buy your machine, but we are not buying that stuff ever again.
Mm.
Now they're asking us to present new technology, new opportunities for us. What started out as a bad situation ended up being great for both our companies because we learned a lot about how to work better together. So, and I think relationships are what it's all about. We forget that people buy from people.
Mm-hmm.
And if I sit across from you and tell you something, that's me telling you. I have to look at this face in the mirror every morning and shave.
Right.
Yep.
I have to be able to look at myself and not be disgusted.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather tell you the truth. And I learned as a very young boy, you don't ever have to remember the truth. A lie, you have to remember forever. The
Yeah.
truth is always the truth. So,
Yep. Good point.
Well, and even when we had those tough conversations, which we're not afraid to have, like you said, we always put the customer first. Our mission statement is we passionately pursue a customer for life. We did that together. And that's how we overcome and show that we really care about the customer. And that's why future opportunities are going to exist with that particular customer. So we appreciate the partnership.
Yep.
Yeah, we do too. We love our partnership with Okuma. I've known Wade for a lot of years.
Yeah.
I've known a lot of people at Okuma my whole career. And you know what?
Right.
One nice thing about this industry is, as we started out this whole conversation, we're all kind of friends. And it's really hard to tell your friend you did something stupid or bad, but I would rather you hear it from me than you hear it from somebody else. I mean, I'd rather call you on the phone. I mean, we've had some interesting conversations too.
Absolutely.
Where, I've made changes based on things that you've recommended, and it's worked out to be very good for both our organizations.
Right.
And I think as long as we remember that and continue down the path as a friendship and a partnership, it can't go wrong.
Well, guys, I think that's a great way. You just did a full circle on me. I didn't even have to really close it up. So, Larry, thank you so much for joining us here today. If people want to learn more about SMW Autoblok and your products, what's the best way to find you guys?
There's a few different ways. Go to our website, www.smwautoblok.com. Or you know what? Feel free to reach out. President of the company, and I will say this out loud, my cell phone number is 313-520-0737. If you have a question, pick up the phone and ask. That's
Beautiful.
what I'm here for.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you all for joining us here today. If you have comments, suggestions for future podcasts, please reach out to us. Give us your thoughts and ideas, and we'll try to pursue those. So until next time, we'll see you then.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, guys.